establish your brand as an artist, you have to understand what type of person or artist you are. When you understand who you are and you embrace that, right? As you start to put your art into the world, you'll start to attract people who like that particular energy, who can identify or see themselves in you, right? It's important to acknowledge the fact that, you know, because what I experienced, which I'm sure a lot of artists experience, you make your things, you make your art, your music the way you want to make it. And then someone comes along and say, hey, if you want to make money or you want to be successful, you got to do it differently. Then basically you got to go against what is making you unique. That is not the way to go, right? Because the thing is, there are 8 billion people in this world. So for example, I'm a black man from the United States, from one of the rougher areas in the part of the world, in that part of the world I live in, right? It wasn't cool when I was a kid starting this music to be associated or liking anime, right? At that point in time, right? I say at that point in time because when I was walking that path and I was sampling anime, sampling music in Japanese anime, that wasn't a common thing. So dudes in my neighborhood would make fun of me for liking the type of hip hop I like, for this, that, and the third, and sometimes they question your character, like, you know, how tough you are, all of these different things, just because I'm a little bit nerdy too. But I'm out here like you are, you know what I mean? And so anyway, fast forward, the world catches up. And the thing that made me different, all of a sudden is the thing globally, right? And so, because I didn't abandon that thing, it took me a long time, because I'm 43, right? It took me a long time, but please believe, this is how I support my family of four, full time, being my authentic self. So now, I go where a lot of the quote-unquote competition aren't, right? I'm at, yeah, I can do the hip hop club, I can get up there, rap, do my thing, blah, 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 but I'm also at an anime convention, right? Performing over there, they typically pay better, right? They also take care of per diem through the weekend, put you up in a bigger hotel, and the audience is built in, right? Now, because I've aligned myself with certain IPs, this goes back to the co-opetition. I love that, fam. Put that on a shirt, you know what I mean? Reverend Mozzie over here. So what I've learned to do over the years, and this is how I built my brand, first figuring out my authentic self, and then finding like-minded brothers and sisters out here in this world who I can build with, who can see the vision. Because what I wanted to say to you, brother, you're not wrong, but he's also not wrong. There is no, this whole idea of one truth. It's not a thing, right? Because the thing is, we're embodiments of that, we figured out how to do the thing. And a lot of it is bucking against systems that tell you you can't do a thing. They're telling you you can't do this, you can't do it. You haven't figured it out. Right? Now you gotta be willing to make sacrifices and push yourself forward in ways that other people weren't willing to do. And the thing is, it may seem like a fairy tale, but like in terms of collective energy, what we were talking about before, collectives doing it, no one did what Wu-Tang Clan did before Wu-Tang Clan did it. You understand? There was no example of that happening in the history of hip hop. A group with 9 people all being signed to a label, but having it built into their contract that they could also get individual contracts outside of that label. But they had to be one common goal first, and people had to make sacrifices that most people, and this is why it feels like it's untrue, most people are not willing to make those sacrifices. But guess what, family? You're artists. You're not most people. You're unique, right? You chose a harder path. You chose a harder path. So now that you've chosen that path, you have to learn to accept the fact that this path is harder. We all know that. Now, how much harder am I willing to work to get to where I need to be? But also understanding that along your journey, and this is what me and Mozzie build about a lot, how can I change the industry? It's not just about, okay, I'm gonna create these opportunities for folks, but how can I change this industry? And you do that through ownership, right? Owning something that you can control, owning your own space, so you can create opportunities for those artists. And if you notice that artists don't seem to understand that, then you can use that space to also hold educational things, right? Have people come in and consult artists so they learn those tools, give them those resources. What I was talking about earlier, we talk about grant opportunities, we talked about crowdfunding. These are things that I'm interested in knowing how these things work here. Is crowdfunding a thing here? Is Kickstarter, right? Like all of these different tools. So if these things aren't tools here, how can we find ways to take things that are being implemented in certain parts of the world and introduce it now to this space? Maybe if these things don't exist here yet, then that means sometimes we got to go advocate to local government to get laws passed to create these things. Because this is, as a member of the Grammys back in the United States, we go out and we lobby. We go meet with Congress, we go meet with different people and like, this is what's happening with the law. This is unacceptable. We need to change it. Get out of this mindset that art and music is this thing that it's not this thing that people need. Art touches everything. This building was designed by an architect. This room was laid out by an interior designer. Your clothes was designed by a fashion designer. We can keep going. Art touches everything. You know what I mean? You don't watch a commercial. You don't watch a movie, a TV show without music. You know what I mean? You don't walk down the street most days and don't hear music. What we create is needed. It's a necessity. It makes your life better. It inspires other people. Think about what you do in that way. Because this is necessary as a mechanic, a plumber, all of these different things. But the thing is, because most of us come from struggle, right? We're taught to think about these things differently. Like it's not something that's needed. It's not something necessary, right? But everywhere you look, you see it. It's everywhere. It encompasses your entire day a lot of times. Subconsciously and sometimes directly in your face. So you have to treat it as such and determine your own value, right? Money, it's a social construct. It's colorful paper. It's not real. What gives it value? Usually what gives it value is the thing backing it. Sometimes it's gold, right? But who decided gold was worth anything? Right? Someone decided it was worth something, someone else decided they needed that thing, and now it has value. How is that any different than art? How is that any different than music? And when you don't have the physical money, you can barter, right? He was just giving you an example, right? And this is something I was dying to say earlier when the brother was speaking. We gotta also, when we talk about hip hop, stop talking. When we speak about hip hop, we're really talking about rap music, right? And that's when I listen to people talk, they're almost always talking about rap music. Hip hop encompasses multiple elements. So you gotta think about your business, even as a hip hop artist, of how can you include, you're working on a music video, you know some dances, right? All right, bring them through. Now those dancers who are in your video, maybe you don't have the upfront capital to pay them, right? But guess what they need? They need music to dance to for their videos that they create. And then they don't want to get flagged on YouTube when they put it over somebody else's song, right? So maybe you create original music for them that hasn't been released yet, so they can create original content that they can monetize without the distributor and all these companies interfering. So there's so many ways around it, right? A visual artist might want to they might want to document themselves creating these beautiful pieces here, and they want to put music to that. Now that same person, you can give them music they can do for that, and then in turn they can design your album cover. You see what I'm saying? One hand washes the other, fam. Take care of each other. We're all we need. We're all we need. And then the folks who sometimes we need a little help from them too. Government folks, the local politicians, and this, that, and the third, when we're dealing with trying to keep spaces open for a certain period of time or just get spaces, all of these different things that we need. Understand that, yes, You can't avoid that stuff, but for the most part, most of the basic things that y'all need to do, you already have it in your community. You just gotta be willing to put egos aside and get to work.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because the resources, and listen,